This video will work through problem 12.3 from Gapenski's Healthcare Finance, 6th edition. So in 12.3, a broker offers to sell you shares of Bay Area Healthcare, which just paid a dividend of $2 per share. The dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 5% per year. The stock's rate of return is 12%. Part A asks, what is the expected dollar dividend over the next 3 years? Okay, so what do we know? Well, we know, let me see here. We know that the dividend, they just paid a dividend of $2. So if they just paid a dividend of $2, that means they've paid it. They're not expecting to pay it. So then that means D0 is 2. The dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 5%. So they're telling us that EG is 5%. They're telling us the stock's required rate of return is 12%. So the RE is 12%. So A is asking, what's the expected dollar dividend over the next 3 years? All right, well, that's relatively straightforward. So let's do a little timeline. 0, 1, 2, 3. So they just paid a $2 dividend. What's it going to be in at time 1? Well, it's going to be 2 times 1.05 because, and this is going to be, well, just call that D1, D2, and D3, right? This is D0, if you will. So D1 is equal to D0 times 1 plus the growth rate. So D1 is equal to 2 times 1 plus 0.05, right? Then D2 is going to be equal to D1 times 1 plus the expected growth rate, right, which is equal to whatever this is, right? Well, it's 2 times 1.05, right? So we're going to wind up with kind of a repeating series, right, where we got 1.05. So D2 is D1 times 1.05. Well, if D1 is 2 times 1.05, then D2 is 2 times 1.05 times 1.05. So that's 2 times 1.05 squared, right? So D2 is really equal to D0 times 1 plus EG squared. And D3 is equal to D0 times 1 plus EG cubed, right? Because now we go to 2 times 1.05, right? So that's going to be times 1.05 times 1.05 times 1.05. Well, that's 3 1.05s, right? Which is what we've got here. So D3 is equal to D0, 2, times 1 plus the growth rate, 1.05 cubed. So we just need our calculator. Change it to scientific. 1.05 raised to the third power is equal to 1.157 times 2 gives us 2.32, right? 2.31525. We'll round it to $2.32. So that is the answer to part A. Part B asks, what is the current value of the stock and the expected stock price at the end of each of the next 3 years? Okay. So well, we can just set a little space here. Okay, so the formula, if we think what we think the value is going to be P0 is equal to D0 times 1 plus the expected growth rate divided by RE minus EG. Well, D0 is 2. The growth rate is 0.05, so that's 1.05. Divided by RE is 12%. We've got to shift that to a decimal, minus the growth rate. Right, so we get, what is that, 2.1 divided by 0.07. 2.1 divided by 0.07 gives us 30. So at D0, right, we believe that the value is 30. So at time 0, we believe the value is 30. So let's carry this through. So P0, EP0, EP1, EP2, right? And EP3, well, if we believe that the growth rate is going to be 5%, then the only thing that's going to be changing, if you look at this formula, is going to be this is going to stay the same, this is going to stay the same, and this is going to stay the same, right? So the only thing that's happening is as we move forward one more year, so right, EP1 is going to equal D1 times 1 plus the expected growth rate divided by minus expected growth. Right, well, what is this? Well, that D1 is equal to D0 times 1 plus EG. So this is really D0 times 1 plus EG times 1 plus EG divided by RE minus EG, right? And so that's, in fact, D0 times 1 plus EG squared over RE minus EG. So essentially all we're doing as we move forward is multiplying the prior price by the growth rate, 1 plus the growth rate. So if we just kind of did this, right, and isolated this, what's happening is we're multiplying EP0 times 1 plus EG to get P1, EP1. So I can neaten that up and just say that's D0 times 1 plus EG over RE minus EG, right? Times 1 plus EG. Right, that's just basic algebra, right? So this is P0, and then this is just 1 plus the growth rate, and that is equal to EP1. So basically, what I'm saying is EP0 times 1 plus the growth rate is equal to EP1. Right? And so then if that's true, right, so EP1 is just EP0 times 1.05. EP2 is EP0 times 1.05 squared. And EP3 is EP0 times 1.05 cubed. So if we want to then actually, get those numbers, we would have EP0 is equal to what we said it was 30. EP1 is 30 times 1.05, which is 31.5. EP2 is 30 times 1.05 squared, right, which is 33.075, and EP3 is 30 times 1.05 cubed, which is 34.73. Okay, so that's part B. Okay, so part C asks, what is the expected dividend yield and capital gains yield for each of the next 3 years? Well, so the year one, you're going to get a dividend yield over the course of the year equal to the expected dividend at year one divided by the price you pay for the stock at the beginning of the year, which would be EP0. So EP dividend one would be 2.1, right? Because that was 2 times 1.05. So that would be 2.1 divided by 30, right? We have EP0 of 30. So the dividend yield always trails, right? So you've got, or rather, not the dividend yield, but the to get the dividend yield, the price always trails the dividend, right? So we have 2.1 divided by 30, that's 0.07. And the question was yield and capital gains yield for each of the next 3 years. So for year one, we're going to get dividend one, the yield is 0.07, and then the capital gain for year one is going to be EP1 minus EP0 divided by EP0, right? Because that is the price gain, right? Capital gain is going to be the price gain, the percent of the price gain over the year. So we're moving from P0 to P1. So that's going to be 31.5 minus 30 divided by 30 is going to give us 1.5 over 30, right? 1.5 divided by 30, and that gives us 0.05. So during year one, right, at the end of year one, we're going to get we're going to have a div yield plus a cap gain yield. So that will be 0.07 plus 0.05 equals 0.12. And that, oh, by the way, is equal to our required rate of return, right? And so that is going to work out that way mathematically, because of what we're doing. So year one is going to be, right, the div yield is the D1, expected D1 divided by P0. That gives us a div yield. Our capital gain yield is P1 minus P0 divided by P0. So then we just do the same thing again for year two. Year two is going to equal the div yield, right, is going to be ED2 divided by EP1. Well, ED2 is D0, which was 2, times 1.05 times 1.05 is 2.205, right? divided by P1 of 31.5 gives us, oh, look, 0.07. And in case you can't guess yet, right, we're going to have 0.05 again for our capital gain yield, but let's look at it anyway. So we're going to do P2, which is 33,075 minus 31.5 divided by 31.5. So we get, there we go, 33.075 minus 31.5 divided by 31.5 gives me, there it is, 0.05. Add these two together, 0.12. Right? And then year 3, div yield is ED3 divided by P2, right? Well, ED3 is D0, which was 2, times 1.05 times 1.05 times 1.05 gives me 2. Did I do it enough times? Times 1.05. There we go. 2.315 and some change, right? I'm not going to write it all up, but I'm going to leave it in my calculator so that I don't lose the decimals. Divided by 33.075. Gives me 0.07. And that's a trick, by the way. If you are working with a calculator and you know you've got a long string of decimals because you had some sort of, the division resulted in a long stream of decimals, leave it in your calculator, right? If you're writing it out, if you cut off and you're like, oh, it's 2.32, you're going to wind up with, slightly off, right? So you'd wind up with, 0.068 something, right? And so you'd be like, is that close enough? Do I remember that that's actually a result of rounding, right? So if you can, leave the raw calculation in your calculator. Okay, so then cap gain is going to be P3 minus P2 divided by P2. So that's cap gain there is 34.73 minus 33.075 divided by 33.075. 34.73 minus 33.075. I give you that divided by 33.075. Yeah, see that, there you go, right? That's a result of a little bit of rounding, so 0.05, right? Close enough. Which again adds up to 0.12, which is our required rate of return on our investment. Part D asks, what's the total return expected for the next 3 years? We already did that, right? Each year it's going to be 7% dividend yield, 5% capital gain. It's always going to add up to 12. All right. So part E, how does the expected total return compare with the required rate of return on the stock? Does this make sense? So the total return is going to equal the required rate of return, and this is kind of created by the math we're doing, right? It's embedded in the math we're doing. By using the 12% as a required rate of return, we generate this initial value of 30, right? And then if we use the 5% growth rate, that's going to keep, the interaction here is really just the result of plugging in the 12 and the 5 into our math. So we'll just keep on getting the 12%. So that is problem 12.3.